Sister Catherine Herms, and this week's live mentorship session is going to be heart advice. And the topic we're going to look at is messy relationships. So before we go any further, let's all take a deep breath. So wherever we are, I'm here giving this time with you, and you're participating in this experience. And heart work and heart advice is really about that experience of participation, that really profound ability to be able to be with ourselves, to watch at the door of our heart, that heart where the risen Jesus has taken up residence and waits for us and loves us and is with us at all times. Now, it can be, though, when our relationships are kind of messy, that we wonder where he is. So before we start, let's just take a few moments to come home to our heart. So I invite you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, where have I been? Where have I been recently? Where has my life taken me in these past few days? What has been unexpected? What has been filled with joy? Where did I feel God's presence or sense God's presence? Or have the courage to trust God's presence? And where did I feel alone? And one final question, what needs my compassion? Ask yourself, what in me at this moment needs my compassion? And just notice what comes up. And I invite you into this simple prayer. To notice first, are you breathing? Many times when we are aware of things that trouble us, we stop breathing. So one of the first things we want to do is breathe. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And repeat after me to yourself this simple little prayer. I am here, I am now, I am in you, Jesus. I am here, I am now, I am in you, Jesus. Jesus, you are in me, in us, and we are in you. We're like a tiny stream that flows into the ocean and disappears into the waters, becoming one with you, and yet always being ourselves. Or we're like a tiny drop of vinegar lost in a great stream of fresh water, where the sunlight plays on the surface, where there is wildlife all around. And that little drop of vinegar is transformed into joy. Help us connect with you, to feel and to know your presence and to love you and allow ourselves to be loved by you. Amen. So, as we said, today's topic is when relationships get messy. And I think the definition of relationships is often messy. And I wonder how they cannot be messy, because they involve two or more people with two or more histories, coming from many times different families, different values, different experiences, having grown up in different ways, in some cases in different cultures. And this can be a cause for some of that messiness, but it also can be the ground for tremendous wealth and tremendous richness. So when we look at messy relationships, we can say, well, where does some of that come from? And there are many places where relationships can get messy, and we're just going to talk about a few today. And one of them is our very early experience as children. Even before we could even remember anything or think about things, we were experiencing, we were taking in what was going on around us. And you know, children come into the world thinking we're the king of the world, and everybody should give us 24/7 attention immediately upon us needing it. And that's a baby, right? And we all know from our own experience that it's pretty impossible to meet that very tall order that a child has when it comes into the world. And part of growing up is discovering that I don't need to have it met this instant. But when you're a child, you don't have that knowledge, that experience, that development, that wisdom. You just know whether you're being taken care of immediately, whether it's a secure relationship, whether you feel safe, whether you feel loved, whether you feel you can get your parents' attention. All those things affect us in the way we grow up. And we turn around and we share our struggles, our very beautiful struggle to become whole, also with our own children or those whom we mentor in life, even if they're not our own children. And I think sometimes it can get a bad rap, you know, the things we didn't get. But the beautiful thing about relationships with God is God doesn't look at us as to what we should be or what we could be or what we should be by now or what we will be. He looks at us at where we are now. And when we're born, he plants a seed. And all of us start out at the beginning of our life experience in a very simple way, in a very humble way, in a very human way. And we grow and we develop our human realities. We get human skills. We learn human values. And little by little, that grows. It becomes more profound. It becomes virtue. It can become divine charity. It can become the longing for God and to be like God and to love like God. But we all start out at the very beginning in a very humble, human, and often broken way. And that's really who God dealt with when he was on earth. When Jesus saw people, he saw them for who they were and what they needed from him. And so we can go to Jesus with who we are and what we need. Another thing that adds to the messiness of relationships is skills. You know, sometimes we need to learn skills that help us to relate to others or deal with conflict or learn how to speak kindly or to propose things in gentleness or to be firm with what we think is true, yet flexible with being open to learn something new, or skills about dealing with anger, or if we bite off people's heads and we don't know why. A lot of that is a skill set that's gradually acquired over years. It's almost like we're a block of marble, and all of our experiences in life kind of chip away And eventually, we begin to discover who we are, the beauty of who we are. But that takes time, it takes experience, and all of us are doing it at the same time. And so relationships then can get very messy. We all have a different history, and the history of our experiences actually affects how we see what happens right now. So if I have an experience of people not listening to me or not paying attention to me, then someone might walk by my desk now, and the fact that they didn't say hello to me and look at me and inquire about me, maybe because they're just preoccupied or trying to get something done. But to me, I understand it according to my experience of not being respected or not being noticed or not being cared about. So that adds to the complexity of relationships, because things that are totally innocent, all of us interpret and give meaning to according to the experiences that we've had in our life. And the last thing we're going to look at briefly is awareness. There are beautiful people who are very aware of how they come across, of the feelings of people around them, of the needs of people around them. And there are people who are really not aware. They haven't had the grace to touch their own central core, to touch that place where awareness awakens, so that they can sit back and see with deeper eyes what's really happening, and almost see God present around them and in them, and in the very people with whom they're having difficulty in relationship. So all of these create filters, create friction, and create excitement and grace. They're spaces of grace in our lives and the possibility of the growth of wisdom and forgiveness. So at this point, I invite you to remember to call to mind a recent experience, not too intense, where there was a little messiness in a relationship that meant something to you. It could be at work, in the family, with a loved one, a friend. Just pull that into your heart and into your mind. And how are you feeling? How does that messiness make you feel about yourself? First of all, what do you feel about yourself when you think of what happened? And notice if you feel down on yourself, if you're mad at yourself, if I'll never get beyond this, guilt, sin, a feeling of I've sinned again. How is it that you see yourself because of the messiness of relationships, or this particular relationship? And stopping to really look at the other person, really look at them, look straight into their eyes. What is it that you feel about them because of the messiness of this event or this relationship, if it's ongoing? And don't be afraid to be honest. Are you angry? Are you hurt? Are you frustrated? What exactly do you think about them? If you could just go up there and say anything you want to right to their face, what would you say? Not that you're going to go off and say it, but what is it that you really, really think and that you wish you could say? Because that lets you know what's happening inside. So messy relationships, how do they cause us to think about ourselves? And how do we then think about other people? So the one tool I want to offer to you regarding relationships is this. Look back at the situation one more time that you brought to mind. And this time, just look at the facts. What happened? Just what happened? Because as soon as something happens, within an instant, we have a filter, an assumption, a feeling, and we can't stop that from happening. But it's a really cool tool to stop and say, okay, what exactly happened? So-and-so called me on the phone and they said this, period. You know, the principal called me on the phone and told me that my son forgot his lunch again. Or a friend walked by my desk and said, whatever, or didn't notice that I was there, or didn't say hello. You know, that's all they did. They walked by my desk and they did not say anything, period. If you can't move to the next step, just as a thought experiment, if you can't move to the next step, that like, why didn't they say hello to me? Or why can't he remember to bring his lunch to school? Right before that, really, she just called me on the phone and she said, he forgot his lunch again, please bring his lunch. Or, you know, she walked by my desk and didn't say anything. And if we allow what is to just be, and that's a difficult thing to do, it's not easy, and you can't just snap your fingers and make it happen, but to entertain the thought that if I just let what is be there, it might reveal to me something new and something different than what I habitually interpret it to mean. And I might even discover something new and beautiful about myself. So this simple heartwork tool is just very easy to do. It's a wonderful thing to do at the end of the day, to pick one situation that happened that day and to say, okay, what exactly happened and no more. X, Y, Z, period. And then what would happen if you invited Jesus into that situation just as the facts are and watch him to see what he does? So I invite you to go back to the situation you brought to your mind, to take just a second and say to yourself or write down what exactly happened and no more. No whys, no interpretation, nothing. And then as we close our time together, I invite you to say to Jesus, Jesus, I am making a heart request to you. And I ask you now, or when I meet this person again, to show me where you are. Show me your face. Show me what you feel. Show me how you see this relationship or this situation. Show me where you are. Jesus, slowing down is hard. Slowing down our thoughts, our hearts, the racing of our hearts, our emotions. It's hard sometimes to slow it down. Help us help us together slow down. Because when we do, we're able to stop that immediate response and to look in wonder with the simple question, where are you? Show me your face, and we shall be saved. Thank you. Wishing you a good week. I'll keep you in prayer.